Voters Conversations with Candidates. This is a new program that we're doing, having individual conversations with some of the candidates in Brunswick County. The League for many years now has done formal forums with candidates from each party being involved, and we are not allowed to have a formal forum. I can't say final forum. Formal forum if we don't have at least two candidates from two different parties. So because this year such a large number of candidates declined to participate in our formal forums, we have decided that we would go ahead and have personal conversations with the candidates who have agreed to participate. We did have one formal forum with the candidates for Board of Education, and you can watch that on our website. You can also go to vote411.org on the internet, and you can see the personal statements of all the candidates who have agreed to respond to the League's invitation. And remember, the League has been here for almost 100 years now, and our goal is to inform voters, to encourage civic participation in elections. We are nonpartisan, and this year the YMCA, the local YMCA, and the Brunswick, the North Carolina Coastal Federation are partnering with us. Excuse me for my mistakes here. Okay, so I'm going to begin the conversation, and today is with William Flythe, who's running for the Board of Commissioners, District 3 in Brunswick County. He lives in Southport. Bill, hi, how are you today?
I'm just fine, Barbara. How about you?
I'm good. Let's get started. First, I'd like to ask you, tell us about the Board of Commissioners. What's their role, their duties?
The Board of Commissioners has an important job, duty in Brunswick County to, first of all, set tax rate, and they also have to supervise various departments like the Sheriff Department, Health Departments, Social Services, Planning, so forth and so on. They also have to set policy. For example, I served on the planning board some years ago, and it was a very important period in that Brunswick County was the 14th fastest growing county in the nation. And of course, more importantly, I was able to participate in the update of the Unified Development Ordinance. And of course, there's a land use plan that is very important, particularly in a county where you have tremendous growth in population and development. So they also have to work with the Board of Education, not in setting policy, but determining how much funding the county will provide. And I was very happy some years ago when the Board of Education and Board of Commissioners agreed on a formula that would allow certain amount of funds to be provided to the Board of Education each year, rather than arguing over how much they should get each year. I think that formula is about 35 or 36% of the funds that comes from ad valorem taxes. So those are some of the things that the Board Commissioner is responsible for.
Okay, it sounds very complex. Now yes. You're running in District 3. Could you just tell us what area of the county District 3 encompasses?
District 3, where I live in Southport, and District 3 will include Ballhead Island, and then we can go up Highway 11 as far as Stone Chimney Road, almost to Supply. And it also include a major development, St. James. And it goes up to, but does not include Borden Spring Lakes. All right.
Okay, but you have to live in District 3 in order to run to be commissioner for that district. But people should also know that everyone in the county gets to vote for commissioner in District 3. It's not just limited to people who live in District 3. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that is one of the reasons I do not emphasize, really make a note that I am representing District 3, because some people, particularly newcomers, may be confused about the fact that, hey, they can still vote for me even though they don't live in my district. I know in some parts of the country, you are allowed only to vote for the individual representing you. Okay? But in the case of Brunswick County, you can vote for all of the county commissioners.
Okay, great. I think that's important for all the voters to know.
Yes.
So thank you. Okay, now tell us about Bill Flythe. Who are you and why are you running for office?
Okay, as indicated earlier, I'm Bill Flythe, the resident of Southport. Lived in Southport for about 40 years. I have a BS degree in chemistry from John C. Smith University in Charlotte. I also have a PhD in physical organic chemistry from Howard University in Washington, D.C. Once I received my education, my degree, my graduate degree, I returned to my alma mater, John C. Smith University, and taught chemistry for about 2 years. Unfortunately, I did not have the patience that I have now to work with students, so I decided to go into industry, and I worked for some little known company you may have heard of, Pfizer. I worked for Pfizer, pharmaceutical and chemical company that's in the forefront in terms of the vaccine development now. But anyway, I worked for them as a quality control chemist and senior laboratory supervisor for 20 years. Once I got laid off at Pfizer, which had at that time a plant in Southport, I decided that I would go into education. So I took courses for about 1.5 years at UNC Wilmington, and then taught chemistry, physical science, and physics at North Brunswick High School for about 12 or 13 years. And then once I decided that it was time for me to move on to other things, I retired and devoted quite a bit of my time to an organization called ROCME, Regional Council for Advancement of Minorities in Engineering. And this organization focuses on minority students from grades 6 through 12, and we try to motivate them to choose STEM careers. And of course, we, say, start from grade 6 and continue through grade 12. And I've served in various capacities over the years with ROCME. First of all, when I was working at Pfizer, I served as an industry representative. Then when I was at North Brunswick High School, I served as the North Brunswick High School representative. Once I retired, I continued to work with ROCME, serving as a member of the board and acting president on some occasions. I also spent about 5 years on the Brunswick County Planning Board, I think it's around 2006 through 2011. And during that period, I indicated that Brunswick County was the 14th fastest growing county in the United States. And of course, I had the opportunity to participate in the update of the Unified Development Ordinance, which is a land use plan that is very important, particularly now that we have so much development and we have to deal with climate change. Also been a deacon in a small Baptist church in Southport for over 30 years. And finally, I serve as president of a local youth organization called Save Our Community. And,
oh, you've been busy.
Yeah, quite busy, still busy, yes.
Right, so what made you decide to run for office? And was there anyone or any group in particular who recruited you to run?
I did, not really. I did have one conversation with a former Board of Education member who was retiring at the time and asked me to run for his seat on the Board of Education. I did not have any interest at the time. I would say that the decision to run for the board, or really run for political office, began about 20 years ago when I was making daily trips to North Brunswick High School to teach science. And on my daily trip, I passed an area upset. Once the developer was brought to task, they received on a slap on the wrist, a small fine. They continue to develop this wetland and made millions of dollars. And now that area is called Brunswick Forest. And then let's see, I think it was in 2016 when I ran for a seat on the Board of Commissioners for the first time. I was extremely upset about the fact that the commissioners decided to pay a whopping $3.5 million for a parcel of land in a beach town that had a tax value of only $1.7 million. And I thought that was extremely unfair and a waste of taxpayers' money. And I decided to run again in 2020, primarily because, like you and others citizens in Brunswick County, I was extremely frustrated about the fact that the Board of Commissioners failed to pass a resolution opposing seismic testing and offshore drilling. And all of the other, several municipalities and towns in Brunswick County and other counties along the east coast of North Carolina had already passed this resolution. So I'm running for the seat on the board. And the first order of business, if I should win an election, is to submit a proposal for opposing offshore drilling.
Okay, thank you. I know education policy has been very important to you. If elected to the Board of Commissioners, what educational policies are you particularly concerned about? And what are your ideas to fix them?
Every 2 years I run for an office. This has been happening for the past 8 years, I would say. And I run for the Board of Education twice. And this is the second time running for a Board of Commissioners. And I always try to remind myself, stay in your own lane. So in the case of the Board of Education of the schools, I would try not to interfere with their policies. I would make sure that I'm very supportive of the board in regards to funding. However, during this COVID-19 period, in light of this fact that I do have over 15 years of teaching experience at the high school and college level, and I have some way different strategies for motivating students, I'm sure that I would have some comments about the COVID-19 problem in which a large number of students are not engaged. Once the students realize that they would not be penalized, that all of them would be able to pass, whether they were engaged in any type of classroom learning, remote learning in the spring. I understand from one teacher that out of 70 students, she had only 15 remain engaged. So one of the things that I would do would encourage the Board of Education to the school superintendent to make sure there's someone who is focused on, I would say, virtual attendance, engagement counselor. That would be my primary focus. Because I understand, don't quote me on this, but I understand there may be around 800 students out of, I think we have 12 or 13,000 students, 800 students who are not engaged at this time, of the school year. And keeping in mind, in order to be counted as present, all you have to do is click on the computer and indicate that you present and you're aware of the class. It doesn't say anything about homework or any other responsibility, but that would be my number one thing. One other thing I want to mention, and then I'll be quiet on this subject, is that the board made an appeal to businesses and churches maybe about 2 months or so ago. I'm sure aware of the fact that some students do not have internet connectivity in their homes. So we were happy when the Board of Education reached out to churches and businesses requesting a partnership in order to provide Wi-Fi service. And my church reached out to the school board, and to make a long story short, we are providing Wi-Fi service to students in the community. All they have to do is come to our parking lot or they park across the street. After they fill out a form and I have provided our password, they can use the Wi-Fi service at our church from maybe about 7 o'clock in the morning to maybe about 11 o'clock at night. So I'm extremely proud of the fact that we formed this partnership with the Brunswick County school system to provide necessary service for our students.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. I was very nervous about the students not having connectivity and being able to do virtual learning. So that's interesting to know about that. Do you know, are students showing up at your church, and about how many are you working with? Do you have any idea?
No, we have not had any students who have applied for this service. We have not returned to in-person church services. We have 5 minority churches in Southport, and we work together on a lot of projects. And once we return to in-person service, I'm thinking about circulating a notice indicating that we do have this service available, and they should encourage their students to take advantage of this service.
Okay. Well then.
Oh, by the way, I also wanted to mention that I did receive a call from individual in the western part of the county, up in the Ash area. She had received a copy of my registration form for Wi-Fi service at my church from a member of the Rockme board. Rockme is a regional organization. Once I created this document and this registration form, I shared that the Wi-Fi registration form with my board members, and this is how this lady was able to receive a form from someone in Whiteville. And then they passed it on to a lady in Asheville. And this is how things should work in terms of sharing, our ideas and our resources.
Okay, great. Well, then how would you evaluate the current board's response to COVID-19? And what would you advocate as a member of the board? I mean, you talked a little bit about in terms of education, but anything else?
COVID-19, the response in terms of the Board of Education, unfortunately, I have to say that I was disappointed. I wrote a letter to the editor about this problem, my concern. For the past 2 or 3 years, I got the impression that the Board of Commissioners were not, the Board of Commissioners was not interested in writing, proposing resolutions for anything. And then in recent months, they've decided that they are going to submit the resolutions on the various things, maybe involving the Second Amendment or whatever. But during the COVID-19, they did not have this response, this COVID-19 on their agenda. But out of the blue, unofficially, at the end of an official meeting, the board took turns blasting our governor for his go slow, science-based response to COVID-19. Basically, most of them just wanted to open everything up when we still had a high positivity rate for the COVID-19 virus. So that is why I wrote a letter to the editor indicating that they were unfair in regards to the governor's plan or strategy, which was based on science. Okay. So if I had to grade them, I would say it's a D in that regard, because they were not supportive of the go slow, science-based strategy that the governor has laid out. And now we see that whereas other states in the South particularly are having major problems with COVID-19, we are able to begin opening some businesses as well as our schools, particularly the elementary levels, K through 5, where we have regular school now, and that's a very good thing.
Okay, you're a long-term resident of Brunswick County. How much of a problem do you think racial inequality is in this county? If you see problems and inequities, what would you address? How would you address them as a county commissioner?
I would say it's hard to, I think, separate problems dealing with racial equality from problems dealing with income inequality. So I'll just think about the fact that we do have some citizens, whether Black or white, who do not have the necessary resources and may not have the necessary services available to them. One of the things that I try to do in terms of education is the Rockman program, where I have minority students from grades 6 through 12, and I know that they are not, that interested in things like STEMs, but I still use robots and electrical circuits to try to motivate them and get them interested in those type things. So that type of community activity, SOC, in which we annually promote a Black History program where students learn about the history of their ancestors. And then we also have an annual student recognition program where we give certificates and trophies to students who have done well in the academic area. I will make sure that during this COVID-19 period that we provide additional funding in terms of providing healthcare service or counselors, whatever is needed in order to address the problems that minorities and low-income people have, to deal with in this county. So we have to deal with food stamps, and we can work with the local schools in providing, food to our students. We also need to deal with child protective services to make sure that sufficient funding is provided there, because unfortunately we have to deal with domestic abuse, child abuse during this difficult period of time. But I think the key thing is for programs like Rockman, continue to work with it. And well, if I'm commissioner, then I'll make sure that sufficient funding is directed into these social services. Okay.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned a little bit about this in the beginning, but what ideas do you have, excuse me, have for the Board of Commissioners in dealing with the weather disasters that have befallen our county? What are your perspectives on the broader issue of climate change and the role of the commission regarding environmental issues?
My mother told me years ago that if you don't have anything nice to say about someone, don't say it at all. So I modified that in the sense that I will not call the name of my opponent in this race, but she indicated in regards to climate change that I guess neither, don't quote me, but she neither agreed or disagreed with this idea of climate change. I'm putting it in my own words as to what she actually said. So in essence, she would not be willing to change anything that they're doing. And that's what's so disheartening. I believe in climate change. I believe in climate change even before I had a situation with a tornado coming through my yard and ripping out a limb in an oak tree. Years ago, when I moved here, I did not have to worry about tornadoes because of the fact that, hey, all the tornadoes I heard of were in the Midwest. Now we have to deal with tornadoes. We also have to deal with flooding as well as beach erosion. So I would depend heavily on the Unified Development Ordinance. Make sure that we take the time to update it, pull together all the departments in the county government, as well as consultants, and decide, figure out what we need to do in order to address problems in the development, the subdivisions like flooding, what we need to do in regards to beach erosion in the various communities in the county. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I indicated on my website, www.flytheforcommission.com, in one of the articles about climate change and the ways that cities have addressed it, I indicated that, hey, pick up on what the city of Miami has done in order to deal with flooding and climate change. So we need to be open-minded and think outside the box. But in the case of my opponent, she indicated that, hey, things are just continue as they've done in the past. And that's not a way to address the problems that we have today.
Okay. Well, how has COVID-19 affected your ability to campaign and meet potential voters?
It's been difficult. I made a decision to purchase about 2,500 rat cars a day or two before the governor called for a COVID-19 shutdown. Normally, I would pass those brochures out at the annual membership meetings of ATMC and Brunswick elected membership. I will not be able to do that this year. So I've had to depend a lot on Zoom meetings. Also, decided maybe about 3 months or so ago, shortly after the COVID-19 shutdown, that I would reach out to, in particular, minority voters in Brunswick County, because they were not as active as they should have been in 2016. I want to make sure that problem did not occur again. So I spent a lot of time calling, getting a list of the voters in Brunswick County, Democratic voters, and calling the ones that I know and try to get them interested in the politics, voting, registration, whatever, get out the vote programs. So I have a list, and it continues to grow because I'll add to my email list tomorrow after making phone calls. And I'll be encouraging them not only to get out the vote, but also to register for the 2020 census. It's been dependent a lot on Zoom as well as email messages. And of course, I've used the newspapers in one ad, and that was based called, we had the theme of AWOL, absent without leave, and I was referring to my opponent. But it will probably be the only ad that I run. And it's very fortunate to have newspapers who are willing to submit questionnaires to the candidates and then print their responses. And also very thankful to organizations like the League of Women Voters for giving us an opportunity to share our vision, share my vision for Brunswick County. Unfortunately, we could not participate in the candidates forum, but I'm so thankful that the members of your organization were able to think outside the box and come up with this idea of having a conversation with the candidates.
Well, we're certainly hoping that it will reach lots of people. But when you have had the opportunity to talk to people, I know you said you phoned a lot of folks. What do they tell you? What's on their mind? Does anything really stand out in your mind that people are really thinking about, and especially deciding to vote in this difficult period?
When I call them, I ask primarily for their email address. So I haven't really spoken to them directly about issues. I did ask members of the party, as well as those I contacted via email, if they would go to a website and check off the issues that were important to them. And this occurred just before the Democratic National Convention, because I also served as an official delegate to the convention. And unfortunately, I did not get very much response in that regard. Early in the year, maybe January or February, we had a precinct meeting, Southport 1. Southport 2, you participated in that. And we got some feedback in terms of the issues that concern folks. And of course, climate change is one of the important issues, as well as the environment, Gen X, that type of thing. So I would say, just based upon past experience and comments, letters to the editors, so on and so on, that the two primary issues would be the environment, which probably include climate change, as well. And of course, now we have COVID-19 in the schools. Yeah.
Okay. There's lots of discussion about the electoral process, fraud and access to the polls. What are your thoughts about the job the Brunswick Board of Elections is doing in this regard? Is it a problem here in Brunswick County?
I'm extremely thankful and supportive of the Board of Elections we have in Brunswick County. They have been quite supportive, and they have acted in a professional manner, not only during the COVID-19 period, but prior to that. And any problem, potential problems that seem that we would have, they have always been able to address these problems. So I don't have any real concern with the voting in Brunswick County. I worry more so about the courts. For instance, I'm worried about the things that the board, not only at the county, well, primarily at the state level, what they have done to make voting as safe and as possible for our voters. Sometimes these courts overturn these measures. And so on a state level, I have more concern about, voting than I do in terms of our county. If everything was set up the way it is set up in Brunswick County, and the type of professionals that we have in the County Board of Elections, if that was the case throughout the state, then I wouldn't have any worry at all.
Okay, thank you. Finally, are there any other issues that you would like to talk about that I didn't ask you in terms of being a commissioner that you think are important, or did we cover them all?
I think we may have, we talked about protection of the coastal environment, talked about my support for local schools, particularly during the COVID-19 period, and we talked about social services. Well, that would include the healthcare. So we touched on that. Probably the only issue that we haven't mentioned that I should indicate is one of my goals, part of my platform. That is the promotion of economic development. I think the board should expand partnerships with Brunswick Community College and area businesses. The industrial parks and natural resources in Brunswick County should be developed along with the appropriate infrastructure. And then plans for the fourth bridge, Cape Fear Crossing across the river, should be resurrected. And I can't remember, it may have been the Star News that asked whether or not the new bridge should be built. Really simply replace the current Cape Fear River Bridge, or we should have another crossing. I think my opponent indicated they just replaced the current bridge. And we still have only 3 crossings, but we need that 4th crossing. We need to go back to not the drawing board, just go back and dust off the plans that the Department of Transportation had earlier this year, maybe it was last year, and resubmit it and pick one of those routes. Because the longer we wait, then the longer, the more difficult it's going to be, because we have continued development. But anyway, back to the economy. That was part of the economy. Why? Because we need that fourth bridge that would lead us to the state ports. And the more development that we have, the more investment we should have in our infrastructure, particularly the bridges. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Bill Flythe, for having this conversation with the league. It will be posted on our website, so you know, the general voters can read it, watch it. I'll have you encourage people to watch it, and go to our vote411.org on the internet, and they can see all the candidates who have answered our questions across the state, and get information there. And so we want to just emphasize, please vote, everyone. Pay attention to the candidates. And again, thank you very much, Bill Flythe, for being with us.
Barbara, how can the voters view this interview? Where can they, how can they get this interview?
Well, you can go directly to the League of Women Voters of the Lower Cape Fear on the website, on our website, or on the internet rather, and that'll have it there. We also have Facebook. You can join the League's Facebook page, and we'll publicize it there. We'll publicize it on every media we can.
Do you know when the interviews will be posted, when you start posting them?
I think we've already started to post them because we've already done 2. You're the 3rd, and we'll do 1 more tomorrow.
Okay.
So as quickly as we can. And Mary Ellen, if she's there and wants to jump in, she could tell us more, but I'm not sure if she's still able to jump in. Yep.
I'll look for it.
And I'll send you more information so you can pass it on to folks.
All right, very good. Thanks very much for this opportunity to share my thoughts and views with the public.
Well, we're glad to do it. That's what we want to do, is give the voters information and encourage them to vote. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye.